I would like to share my findings on eclipses that surround both the modern dispensation of the gospel as well as the Nephite dispensation and then future events. I will present these as fact, not necessarily with interpretation at the beginning. I will save my interpretation for the end. So, what you're going to get from me at the beginning is simply the bare facts. So, what you see on your screen is the 2017, 2023, and 2024 eclipses that crossed America. They form what looks to many people like an Aleph, the Paleo Aleph, as in the symbol of the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet from ancient times. This is a pretty obvious pattern recognition thing that humans engage in. We're very good at finding patterns. Whether this has deeper meaning or not is for each of us to judge for ourselves. And again, I will leave till the end. But I will give one thing. I thought the last shall be first and the first shall be last. If this is the beginning and we are at the end times, then there must be an end that is the beginning. I know that's a little weird sentence, but I started looking for a tav, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. If this is a sign, there might be more. So I looked back, and between 1806 and 1834, there were two solar eclipses that formed an X across the United States. So one in 1806 and one in 1834. A very interesting coincidence. What does that mean? We'll get to that at the end. But either way, now we have seen a Tav formed in the roughly the early 1800s and an Aleph formed in the 2017 to 2024 range. But let's go back further. What about 602 to 584 BC? There were three eclipses that formed what almost is an Aleph. I am calling it a broken Aleph because it breaks across ancient Babylon. Ancient Babylon being a very important historic site. Now, the interesting thing is this 584 BC eclipse crosses the ocean and continues until it crosses Central America, a very interesting location to cross. At the end, so that was the beginning of Nephite civilization. At the end of Nephite civilization, there were two eclipses that formed an X, 411 and 428 AD. Interestingly enough, Moroni buried the plates in 421 AD, right there in the middle, roughly. So 411 and 428, a series of solar eclipses formed another Tav. So we have the Aleph of 2024, the Tav of 1834, the broken Aleph of 584 BC, began in 602, and the Tav of 428 AD. So is this all? Interestingly enough, no, because coming up very soon, 2027 through 2034, there will be three more eclipses that center around Israel. There's lovely little Israel right there. And there's three eclipses that form I interpret a cup. It looks kind of like the kaf symbol from ancient Paleo Hebrew. You can see that in my interpretation there. It's very rough. I mean, of course, we're painting with a moon that's 400 times smaller than the sun and 400 times further closer. It's just, these are eclipses. It's fascinating. So again, we have this possible paleo kaf. It's not a Aleph, it's not a Tav, but it's interesting. But what gets even more interesting is that 2027 through 2034 is not the last time we see this exact pattern. In fact, 2045 through 2052, the exact same pattern occurs over the Americas. And that little dot right there is the New Jerusalem. So, what does this mean? I have presented all this as bare fact, and now I will make wild assumptions and interpretations that are just my interpretations. Please do not take this as LDS doctrine. It is not. In fact, it is very much me just spitballing because I am a scientist, I love space, and I love the gospel, and this is so cool. So let's just jump right back to the beginning. This Aleph to me is the end of the Tav of the restoration. Something has ended. Is it the time of the Gentiles? We do see the gospel going forth to the rest of the world a lot more than it is going to the typical Gentile of the 1830s through 2020s. Have things changed? Possibly. Remains to be seen. But that's my interpretation is the time of the Gentiles ended in 2024, or at least the sign of it did. I think this was the literal sign of the Nephite civilization being sent across the ocean to the Americas. And the break in the Aleph was specifically put in there to show the perpetrator of the scattering of Israel. This is the scattering, the captivity of the Jews, the final step of the scattering. I think that was the sign of the beginning of the Nephite civilization, and this is the sign of the end of the Nephite civilization, or you could say dispensation. What about these? If this is a cuff, it is like an open hand. That is what the symbol means. I could see it being a cup anyway, kind of like this. And Israel is right inside that cup. Is it? Who knows? What does it mean? Perhaps temple covenants. This is for future telling. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. But I would love it to be a sign that the Jews will be able to build their temple. But then what is this one in 2045 through 2052? Perhaps the completion of the New Jerusalem with its temples? A fulfillment? Not saying that'll be like Jesus' second coming. I'm not crazy enough to put an actual date on that. But I think that we have some pretty significant signs telling us something is happening.